Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues, folks. Great to be here with you today. Seth Udinski here with you this morning, along with Sam Case, the Studio A team. Several guests joining me today. We got a packed show. Happy to be here with you. Sam, ready to rock and roll? Let's do it, buddy. Excited for it
as
today.
always, I'm a professional, Seth.
That's right. Always ready. 9:05 always comes, and Sam is always ready.
Yeah, I actually combed my hair today. If you watched yesterday, I had a wild cowlet going on. That was just to make things fun.
That's right. Sam was having a little party, party in the back up there, but we're all good today. So, great stuff, man. Hey, busy show, folks. Economist Michael Austin of the National Center for Public Policy Research's Project 21, is going to join me to discuss the sector ingredient to, the secret ingredient to economic growth. See, here's the problem, Sam. When I put things in the show notes wrong, I read them wrong, and that's what I was doing right there. The secret ingredient to economic growth.
Your notes betray you, Seth.
My notes betray. Really, that's the lesson, folks, is don't get chained to your notes. Also, international speaker and author Nick Vujicic joins me. He's going to share his insight on Donald Trump's recent news that he was debanked. We've had Nick on the program before, and he briefly shared his own experience with debanking. So he's going to talk a little bit more in depth with us about that. I'm excited for you. You don't want to miss that. Your calls and questions as well. Also, this question, is friendship too expensive to be worth it? Apparently, a lot of people think so. We'll discuss later on what that looks like.
Reject friends, choose money.
That's right.
No, that's not it.
Are you either choosing money or friendship? We'll talk about that later on. Folks, be on the lookout for the partner commentary out in the next couple days, next 24 hours or so, if you are a partner. And speaking of which partners, we do have a conference call this Thursday, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great time hearing Shanna's wisdom. Of course, that will be posted as well after the fact. But try to make plans if you can join us live for that conference call. Again, that'll be this Thursday, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And you should expect an email to go out soon giving you the call-in number for that call. All right, folks, in the economy here, let's start with earnings. So Home Depot reported earnings this morning. They actually missed both on earnings per share and on revenue. They still expect a full year total sales growth by 2.8%, but this was the first time since May 2014 that Home Depot missed both earnings and revenue expectations. Still, the company is holding fast, saying it has no plans to increase prices because of tariffs. So that was kind of the first of our big retailers to report. We'll also get Walmart, we'll get Target. I think we get Lowe's later on this week, Sam, and BJ's as well.
That's right. It'll be interesting to see how Lowe's compares to Home Depot because they're in very similar markets. So we'll have to see, is this a company problem or is this an industry problem, perhaps tied to the housing market?
Yep. It is encouraging, at least to see Home Depot, one of them. I know not all businesses are doing this, but whenever companies say they're not planning to increase prices in spite of the tariffs, I think that's a good thing. So good stuff to see there. Markets, let's move there now, folks. Markets open the week slightly in a downward direction as they awaited housing numbers from this morning, as well as, and we'll get to those in just a moment, by the way, as well, housing numbers and earnings reports. And of course, looming later on this week is the Jackson Hole Summit speech from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. So by midday, indices just below the flat line. The S&P and the NASDAQ flirted with a positive day. It ended up being that the NASDAQ was the lone winner, but all the indices finished basically at the flat line. The Dow and the S&P were just below and the NASDAQ slightly above. Pre-markets this morning were down slightly following that earnings call from Home Depot. As of right now, the Dow Jones is pricing in to open positive, about 0.5%. S&P and the NASDAQ looking to continue in a negative direction like they were yesterday. All right, Sam, one of the big news stories we've talked about the last 24 hours in the news cycle has been what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. What have you got for us, Sam? Because we were talking about this on yesterday's show. There were still some meetings to come as Trump was meeting with Zelensky and also some of the other European leaders in the White House. So give us just a recap of what was going on there.
Yeah, Sam. I'll give you a quick update. Won't go into too much detail, but it is important important to keep our eye on this, as the markets are also keeping at least one of their eyes on this, and they're a little nervous about how this is going to go. So yesterday, that meeting was attended not just by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, although he did have a one-on-one with President Trump, but also numerous European leaders. A couple things to come out of that.
I'm told he also wore a suit.
He did wear a suit.
Good for him.
Yes. And, it looked pretty good on him. I thought he looked a tad like Dracula, but he's from, Eastern Europe, so it checks out.
Works out.
Yeah, that's
Sorry
right.
about that. Anyway.
Yeah, so they had their meeting. Trump said the main focus of the discussion was security guarantees that will, by the way, be provided by Europe, although the U.S. will coordinate that. So that is a relief for some in the MAGA base who say we don't want to get involved too much with Ukraine. In fact, they say we're already way too involved as it is. Meanwhile, however, the big news to come out of the meeting is that Trump did announce on Truth Social that he began arranging a trilateral meeting between Zelensky and Putin that Trump himself will also attend.
Good stuff, Sam. I do appreciate you bringing that up. I think it is worth noting here, folks, that Trump is dealing with two people who I think might be a little more similar than they would like to admit. Everyone knows Vladimir Putin is basically a dictator. But did you know that elections in Ukraine have actually been suspended until further notice? So Zelensky keeps his power as long as Ukraine is at war. That's a little bit dictatorial to me as well. Trump is dealing with both these guys. Trump's goal here is peace. And I think that hopefully that seems to be the goal for the rest of the world. We'll have to see if that is true for Ukraine and Russia as well. But hopefully that comes out, Sam. I was very encouraged to hear that because I don't think we've had this much progress since the war began. At least in terms of those talks. So I think that's good stuff there. We'll have to see what comes of that. Sam, do you know, is there a timetable for when this meeting will be?
No, all we are going off of is Trump's Truth Social. He says he's arranging a meeting. No other details than that.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. So we'll keep an eye on that, folks. If any news breaks, you'll be sure to hear it from here. We did get some housing data out this morning as well. Sam, you want to give us the latest on this one also?
That's right. So we did get some housing data, specifically housing starts. So total U.S. housing starts were up 5.2% in July to an annual rate of 1.428 million, 12% higher, actually close to 13% higher than in July 2024. Single-family home starts were up 2.8% to exactly 939,000 annualized. Meanwhile, building permits, they were actually down 2.8%, with single-family permits remaining flat.
Thank you so much for that, Sam. Appreciate that. Existing home sales are going to come out Thursday morning, so we'll get a little more insight on what's happening there. Builders seem to be in wait-and-see mode, much like the Federal Reserve. So a lot of people in wait-and-see mode, it seems like. All right, Sam, we got a question yesterday. Keith, who is 78 years old, was asking, so Shanna had mentioned something yesterday. Go ahead and give us Keith's question there, and we'll talk about that for just a moment.
Yeah, Keith is wondering about how Shanna mentioned a company that Warren Buffett had recently purchased. He said, I had trouble hearing you clearly about what that stock was. I looked at the broad list for all codes with 26. I'm just not sure which one you're speaking about.
Keith, thanks for asking. Wasn't yesterday's first segment. The company Shanna was referring to is CD26. CD26 is currently on our buy list, one of our home builders on our buy list right now. So on August 14th, and if you're a partner, you know what company this is. And if you're not a partner, you can probably do some research on it and figure it out anyway. But on August 14th, Berkshire Hathaway indicated they'd be investing in this particular holding as well in their 13F filing. And this is what Shanna was referencing yesterday. So, Keith, I hope that can be helpful for you. Folks, it's interesting. When we talk about Warren Buffett, he's kind of a strange character for us in biblically responsible investing because he is not biblically responsible. Berkshire Hathaway is not biblically responsible. Berkshire Hathaway's investment in this company does not make it non-biblically responsible. That is, this company, CD26. Berkshire Hathaway itself is not biblically responsible. Now, that said, Warren Buffett is a great model when it comes to being well diversified and being very, very long term. I've heard some things sound true, but I have heard that Warren Buffett has been investing in certain holdings that he's held since the 1960s. Can you imagine that? Imagine how much appreciation he's had on those holdings.
He's also really good at not letting his emotions get the best of him. He made quite a bit of money off of the 2008 crash because he saw it as a buying opportunity, not a selling opportunity.
Much like our founder, Dan Celia, who never got out and never lost money. That's what happened with Warren Buffett as well. So a great lesson there. Also, a good model of living well within your means. Sam and I have looked into this a little bit. If you research Warren Buffett's house, it's not extravagant. The guy's worth like $140 billion. And he lives in a rather, it's a nice house, but it's not like your typical mansion that you might see someone with a over $100 billion net worth living in. It's fascinating there. So good lesson for us there nonetheless. Couple quick hitters here before we move to our interview with Michael coming up in just a moment, Michael Austin. Scott Bessent said, we saw this morning, interviews for really what he's calling an incredible group of potential Fed chairs will start after Labor Day. So we'll get some talks there in September. Quite a big list, 11 people so far. Yep, absolutely. And some more well-known names, some not as well-known. Also, the D.C. Police Union is saying 8% crime drop when the feds arrive. So crime has already been dropping in D.C. Of course, Democratic politicians are complaining and calling this an overreach of power. Meanwhile,
well, they are publicly, but Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, a liberal himself, says all his liberal friends, including politicians and media members, are privately texting him saying, we can't say this out loud, but we actually really like that Trump's doing this.
See, that's so frustrating. Why can't they say that out loud? Why can't MSNBC just report what's happening? It's because they are owned and bought and really owned by deep state left-leaning politicians. That's what it is, folks. It really is frustrating. Just a good reminder that you need to use good wisdom and truth and keep following us because we're going to give you the true news from a Christian worldview here on this show. Coming up next, Michael Austin of the National Center for Public Policy joins me. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
For $132 a year, they get a step-by-step process.
Who ever heard of getting an education for $132?
I'm just a high school graduate, and I never thought that I could learn so easily.
And the strategy is so simple.
I just want to say I appreciate you guys. We have done so well, so we really appreciate everything you guys do.
Go to financialissues.org to get started today.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. And on top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support Preborn. The donations that you give actually make a difference. Last year, 59,000 babies were saved because of what you have done with your generosity.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back, folks. Good to be here with you today on Financial Issues. Hey, I have a special guest joining me on the program this morning. I've got Michael Austin. Now, Michael is of the National Center for Public Policy. Our friends over there, we so appreciate the work that the National Center does in encouraging the free market and freedom in general for Americans. Michael serves as the Project 2021 member. He's a free market economic consultant, president of the Knowledge and Decisions Economic Consulting, and he's also a professor of economics on with me this morning. Michael, I appreciate you joining me so much today. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day.
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate being here.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome. Let's begin here. Last week, we saw national debt reaching, unfortunately, a rather inglorious record, Michael, $37 trillion. Yay, as we all say. One of the biggest issues that we have seen in recent days in our nation, no matter the political leanings of the ruling administration, unfortunately, is unchecked fiscal spending, and in many times foolish fiscal spending. Michael, recently you penned an article on the National Center's website exploring, quote, the secret ingredient to economic growth, and you shared that this secret ingredient is spending limits. What does this realistically look like in our country?
Well, thank you very much. Let me kind of start off saying that America grows when prices are stable, when budgets are honest, when people are free to trade. And so highlighting exactly what you talked about. The federal debt has grown about 37 trillion. I think the latest CBO numbers have the most recent deficit now maybe about almost $2 trillion. And then if you look at the economy, while it's resilient, it's also mixed. We had great GDP growth of 3%, unemployment rate of 4.2, inflation is at 2%. And yet when you look under the hood, when you see things like manufacturing, it's not growing as fast as we would like. It doesn't really have the underpinnings of a very strong economy. And I think largely that has to do with federal government still being in the way for many opportunities of progress for many families and businesses out there. So when I talk about the secret ingredient to economic growth, what I'm really talking about is how do we get government to to go out of the way in order for the private sector to grow. And maybe that means that we have to implement a sort of spending limit, not some arbitrary, take a hatchet to the leg type spending limit, but a spending limit tied to economic growth. When the U.S. economy grows, allow government to grow. But when the U.S. economy is not, government always will make sure that it keeps itself back. It's a secret ingredient that I believe you want to make sure that the federal government never grows faster than the private economy.
And so, Michael, how does this come about? Does it start from the top? Is it going to start with the president, or does it start at the grassroots, or is it somewhere in between?
Well, I think the best answer for that is probably both, right? You can most certainly have President Donald Trump institute a type of executive limit through an executive order, or of course you can get a groundswell of folks telling their elected congressmen and senators that they need to institute that type of spending limit. But clearly, when you want government to change, you need both a top and a bottom up approach to do so. And I think it most certainly can be done. One of the best reasons why is you can see it here at the state level. There are many states across the U.S. that are actually tinkering with this type of plan, finding ways that they can institute a limit on spending in order to make sure that state government doesn't grow faster than the private sector. And if it can be done at the states, then it's only a matter of time that we can see that happen at the federal level as well.
Now, let me ask you this, Michael. Every single president that I can remember of says they want to do this. They intend to do this. They intend to, fix the issue of unchecked fiscal spending, and then almost none do. And that's sad that is the reality. Why is that, and what needs to change from that level?
Well, perhaps you can make a statement or make an argument that the issue really comes down to the political level. But I would say that there are plenty of presidents, and there are plenty of times where Congress itself, believe the very same thing. Talking about, let's say, research done by economist Thomas Sowell, he talks about for the first 150 years of America's existence, every time that there was an economic recession, the federal government did absolutely nothing. And yet, for those 150 years, those recessions, reversed themselves as quickly as they came about because the federal government did nothing. And yet, what we saw in the 20th century with Presidents Woodrow Wilson and then FDR came about this belief that government had to be involved, it had to meddle, and unfortunately, it had to crowd out the private sector every time there was an economic downturn. And yet every time it did that, recessions became longer and longer. So frankly, we just need to get out of this mindset that you need, government in order to fix the problem that most likely government created in the first place. If you want to fix recessions, if you want to get the economy growing again, you have to start with the source, which is federal government itself being too big and too onerous for businesses and families.
And you're exactly right, Michael. That, of course, comes with us having a stewardship responsibility to elect officials who understand the danger of government. And it's hard to find people like that, brother, because I think a lot of people get into politics maybe with good intentions, but they see the power, they see the money, they see the prestige, and maybe it starts to cloud their judgment a little bit. What are some other things, Michael, that we as non-political members can do to help move the needle in the right direction here?
That's a great point. One thing I would say is work with the government that's closest to you, right? Yeah. Sometimes it could be difficult to get your congressman to hear your particular email or your senator, but you as an individual have immense control at your local level, at your state level. And that's one way where you can not only see immediate change, but it can serve as a roadmap for the federal government to follow as well. So I would say be involved in your local politics, of course, be involved in your local economy, and try to get changes that can make your life better immediately at either that local level or the state level. And then let's try to scale it up to what we can see done in Washington, D.C.
Some of the big news coming out of D.C. as it pertains to fiscal spending is the big, beautiful bill. And that's really where I kind of want to go next here. What do you make of all of it in light of what we just discussed? There's a lot of good stuff in it. I think there are some things that are unnecessary, and there is also a hefty price tag. What do you make of the big, beautiful bill?
Well, sure. Let me reiterate again. I think the U.S. economy still remains resilient, right? 3% GDP growth, low unemployment, strong markets. But as I said before, I think that there's more beneath the surface. There's still plenty of price pressures that are lingering in specific sectors. Business sentiment is still kind of soft. And I think that is a call not just for rate relief, but it's just a call for pro-growth policy. And so when we talk about the one big, beautiful bill, the couple of great things I like in that bill is the massive deregulation it's doing. Not only that, but it's also creating a relatively smaller federal footprint. Yeah, there's not much in terms of spending restraint, but I still think it's a step in the right direction. Opening markets, unleashing productivity, reducing pressures on the Federal Reserve to solve problems, by monetary policy alone. There's a lot of good things here. Obviously, the fact that it made permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was also immense. You're talking about, let's say, folks here in Kansas City saving about $2,500 to almost $3,000 a household just by keeping those tax cuts permanent. Those are also a good thing. Now that has passed, what we need to see is rescission, and we need to see a more pared back federal government. Now that we got great tax policy and good regulatory policy in, now we need to make sure that we check the last bastion of federal government growth, which is its unchecked spending.
And Michael, in your estimation, if you had the president's ear right now, how would you advise him to do that? What does Trump need to do to achieve that goal?
Well, what I would say is do as much as you can under the executive level and get Congress to codify it, right? So the president has immense authority to scale back a lot of discretionary spending, but it's not going to be permanent. As soon as he leaves office, the next president, whether it's a Democrat or maybe even another Republican, could just institute those spending back in. So whatever has to be done, it has to be done with the approval of Congress as well. Not only that, but I would also advise them that while we're seeing great GDP growth, while the stock market is at record highs, there is still a lot of underlying productivity issues, particularly in manufacturing. And frankly, I would ask him to, double check and recheck, if not revise, what he's been doing on tariffs. The fact of the matter is that tariffs are still a tax on the American people, and a lot of manufacturing, whether they know it or not, are sourcing materials from overseas. And whether you raise prices overseas or whether they're forced to look at domestic producers, they're going to be seeing price hikes nonetheless. The latest PPI index unfortunately showed that. So if he really wants to get manufacturing growing again, he has to find ways to lower prices across the board. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in terms of his tariff policy is doing the exact opposite.
Michael, I so appreciate your expertise sharing all those things with us. I'd like to take the time we have left for you to tell us a little bit about yourself. This is your first time on the show, and I'm thrilled that you have a chance to meet our audience and you as well. We're familiar with the National Center, but not as much with Project 2020 with Project 21. Can you tell us about this and how you promote free market economics through it?
Sure. So Project 21 is effectively a consortium under that National Center of African American Conservatives. We believe, of course, African Americans are not a monolith, as opposed to maybe what you might hear the left say. And so they try to promote as many different voices from African Americans as is possible. And even among the Republican Party or among conservatism, you'll find a wide array of different thoughts, a diversity of opinion, if you will. And so my background, of course, is in economics. I teach microeconomics at a university here in Kansas. Obviously, I consult with many organizations and businesses across the state when it comes to economic development or budgets or tax policy. And so I personally believe in free markets, and I really appreciate Project 21 for allowing me to use my voice to speak to many folks across the country about how we can get government to pare itself back and promote more freedom, because that ultimately is the best key for human flourishing and prosperity.
Well said, Michael. I appreciate that so much. Tell us, I'd referenced an article that you had written recently. How can our audience read more of your work, and how can they learn more about what you do?
Sure. You can find me, of course, on social media at KS Economist, and that's either X or Facebook at KS Economist.
Awesome. Well, Michael, we appreciate you joining us so much on the program here, brother. I'm so grateful for you sharing your expertise with us. And, it was very helpful for me to think kind of holistically about everything that's going on here. A lot of good things that the Trump administration is doing. They, of course, are merely a human-instituted presidential administration. And so, of course, that's such a good reminder for us here at our ministry. And I'm sure you share these sentiments as well, Michael, that we need to first place our trust in God Almighty and do our best to steward our country well. So, Michael,
thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today on the program, Michael. And I really do look forward to the next time that I get to have you back on, brother. It was a blessing.
Thank you. Hope to be back soon. It was fun.
Absolutely. Folks, again, that's Michael Austin. You can check out his work. Best place to go is the nationalcenter.org. And then on that page, you can click on the Project 21 button. And that takes you to, Michael's profile and some of the work that he has done as well. So go ahead and check that out today at the National Center for Public Policy Research. We got more financial issues coming up right after this break, folks. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
My name is David Hunsinger. I live in Edgewater Park, New Jersey. I came across financial issues by accident. I believe it was on a certain TV station at that time. I got interested in finding out more, so I went online to find out more, and that's when I became a more active participant in financial issues. I did have some interest in investing prior to getting involved with FISM. Biblical investing I thought was more important, so obviously I changed my approach. I know I'm much happier for it. I'm probably more at ease now. It's probably the best way to sum it up in terms of I don't necessarily worry about if this is going to happen, if that's going to happen. I don't worry about that. If I was to encourage somebody to participate in FISM, I would use myself as an example. I've been very pleased to participate. If God's happy, I'm happy.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
I want to make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
folks. Good to be here with you today. I've got another special guest on the program with me. Very delighted and honored to have Nick Vujicic on the program. Nick is the founder of Nick V Ministries. You can learn more about them at nickvministries.org. Nick is a international speaker, author, and is actually going to be traveling very soon to Central America to bring the gospel to several different countries down there. We're so excited to hear about that. He's also the founder of the Prolife bank, Prolife Fintech. And so he was born with a very unique physical challenge, of course, but it has not stopped him from bringing the message of the gospel to the nations. Nick, it's a pleasure to have you back on our show, brother. Welcome.
Seth, thank you so much for having me back. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Let's jump in right away, Nick. Several weeks ago, we heard some news that Donald Trump apparently had been debanked by not just one, but several big name banks. Now, I know, Nick, that is a recent addition to your very fascinating testimony of having been debanked as well. It's obvious with Donald Trump that this was probably because of his conservative political leaning. Let's start here, Nick. Speak to this. As someone who got debanked yourself, what's your reaction to know that even the President of the United States can also be subject to this?
Well, it's not surprising. You know, once we started speaking about my experience in April 2019, before cancel culture was coined, there were many people that reached out to us, and we had many conversations with actually some large ministries as well, who started gathering databases of small and medium-sized businesses being canceled by some of the large banks. And unfortunately, even with the current administration, we're still hearing that even in Q1 of 2025, there is one of these larger banks that's going just going left, right with churches, actually, and not being so discreet as they used to be, actually. And so it's interesting to also learn that it's this common now that 5 state legislators have actually made a law that no longer can banks cancel a client without cause. So when we have to now start putting this in state legislation, it's unbelievable.
Well said, brother. So it seems like, as you said, President Trump, the administration taking action to stop this. I found this interesting, Nick. You know, banks are actually putting the blame on FDIC rules relating to reputational risk. Can you speak to that for just a moment? How does that play into the debanking issue?
You know, the only way that kind of plays into it is if you're doing wiring, you know, with these closed countries. And, you know, as we've seen countries that were open and then closed and kind of like the red flag no-go zones, there were only like 4 or 5 countries at that point. And it's interesting to understand that, no, it's not really FDIC in our opinion. In fact, the first kind of company that was debanked was back in 2016, and it was more of the ammunition companies. And if you go back, there are some things that people could say, well, it's framed as FDIC, and we know we don't believe it is. We just believe it's actually the private companies that can click buttons. And actually, we have seen quite a wave of conservative Christians and Christian-owned companies and churches being targeted. And I think it started back in 2016. And no, I don't believe it's FDIC. And yeah, we have our own theories. We can't prove anything right now, but yeah, it's interesting.
Sure. And Nick, speak to those churches now who went through this experience as you did also. What kind of encouragement would you give to someone who is fearful of being debanked or has gone through the process? What would you tell them?
Yeah, look, just take one day at a time. But honestly, there's one message here, Seth, where it's about, you know, not being debanked. But the other real more core message is actually being good stewards of God's wealth. So imagine Jesus prayed that we'd all come together in unity. Imagine all the Christian churches, Christian schools coming together and moving away from woke large banks that actually take then God's money, make money on God's money, and then they do their own tithing, but they actually tithe, if you will, if we can use the Christianese word. They philanthropically give to nonprofit organizations that do not line up with biblical or Judeo-Christian values. And so when we've realized that the larger banks were supportive, very generous support to pro-choice, Planned Parenthood, abortion-providing organizations, as well now Planned Parenthood now being the biggest funder of hormone-altering drugs for minors. And so it actually comes back to a conviction. Are we being good stewards with God's wealth? Whether that's in investments, whether that's trading stocks, but now even with banking choices. Why not see a unity coming on a conservative Christian fund, a front where 10%, as an example, Prolife Fintech, we actually give to biblically aligned nonprofit organizations and making kingdom impact with our banking choices.
And Nick, that was where I really wanted to go next. This whole experience led you to start Prolife Fintech as really kind of a counterpunch to this. How did you go about this, and what are the values that Prolife Fintech stands for? I think obviously the name kind of gives it away a little bit, that you are pro-life, but it's not just that. You are a Christian bank. How do you guys operate?
Yeah, we're not a Christian bank per se, a bank. We're not a brick and mortar. We have the brick and mortar bank, Regent Bank, that has footprints in several states, including Oklahoma, which is where they were founded, and Texas. They just opened up one in Frisco here. And I live in Texas, and I feel like there is an incredible movement of people understanding that this is a pioneering counterpunch where we can use incredible technology, it being continually morphing in a very normally a slow evolving industry in the banking industry has now become supersonic. And it's just been crazy fast. Seeing fintech, financial technologies at play where normally a brick and mortar would digitize a side core banking system to have a digital online platform. We, on the other hand, Prolife Fintech is more like an island popping up out of the middle of the ocean and then building a bridge to the mainland to the brick and mortar. And when we have a brick and mortar charter sponsor, Regent Bank, we're also providing that FDIC insurance coverage for our customers and clients. And we have personal checkings, money market, and savings accounts. And then with our joint venture agreement with Regent, we're able to open up corporate accounts with them, trust accounts with them, and we earmark them as PLF, Prolife Fintech. And this is the beginning, we believe, of an alignment of like-minded Christian bankers all across the country and actually forming an alliance together where we can see God honored in our banking decisions like never before. So this is just the beginning. We believe one day we'll have a brick and mortar. Not that we need it, but we feel that would be one step, and also a step in the right direction of wealth management one day as well. We really believe that Gen Z, especially when they really understand that, yes, we need to be great stewards of every dollar of God's, I think this is going to be quite a giant movement.
Well, Nick, it's right in line with what we talk about often on the show, brother. And it's exciting to get to promote you guys here and get to hold you guys up a little bit to kind of see how that works. That's fantastic, man. Hey, Nick, tell us quickly here, how can our listeners learn more about Prolife Fintech?
Yeah, if you go to prolifefintech.com, you'll see our board, our information, some videos there, a listing of products there as well. And you can click on open an account, and you can choose either opening up a business account with Regent or personal checking, savings, money market account with us. And we're really excited about the beginnings of where we're at. And go check it out, prolifefintech.com.
Absolutely, brother. And as we were just talking during that break there, you were sharing with me some of what you're doing personally as you're going to be traveling to Central America to preach the gospel. Tell our listeners about this. This is so exciting.
Yeah, nickvministries.org will actually be doing on our social media handles an incredible opportunity that opened up. We're doing 5 countries over 6 days. We're in Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Belize, and El Salvador. And God willing, we'll be meeting 2 presidents this week and preaching the gospel to 40% of the population of these countries in a week. And so nickvministries.org, we're actually celebrating our 20th anniversary as a ministry. And we're really excited about that. And check it out, nickvministries.org. And for you to send us to more missions, you can go to sendmap.org.
It's awesome. And last thing, Nick, I know you guys are working on a documentary right now, and we had you on last time. You told us a little bit about it. Just remind our listeners about this process, how it's going, and how we can watch this documentary once it comes out.
Thank you, Seth, so much. Yeah, go to nickvteam.com and you can check out the trailer of No Limbs, No Limits. It's a film that's a documentary about my life in the beginnings, and my mom's in it. My janitor is in it. Who's the first person to actually say that I'm going to be a speaker and organize my first speech. And so it's a beautiful showing of that. No Limbs, No Limits, nickvteam.com. Go there, and there's updates there as well. So not only can you share the trailer, but there's going to be some announcements of how we can all participate in the P&A funding as well. We're really excited. 25th of September, 2026.
That's awesome. Well, Nick, you're a blessing and an inspiration to all of us. Obviously, having no limbs has not stopped you from preaching the gospel worldwide, brother. And so keep on doing it, man. It's wonderful to have you on the show, Nick. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Seth. God bless you and everyone there.
Absolutely. Folks, again, that's Nick Vujicic. You can check him out, nickvministries.org. Again, nickvministries.org. I'll be sure to put those links that Nick mentioned there in the chat for Prolife Fintech, for the documentary as well. Great to have Nick joining me on the show today. More financial issues right around the corner after this break. Stick with us. Do you love financial issues? Did you know you can catch the show anytime at financialissues.org? But that's not all. Financial Issues is also available on multiple platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Rumble. You can listen on your favorite device wherever and whenever it's convenient for you. Whether you're at home sipping coffee, commuting to work, or enjoying a workout, Financial Issues is just a click away. Don't miss a moment. Stay connected to Financial Issues and make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments.
Hi, this is Sheena Bird, the host of Financial Issues. Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Thanks for being with us here on Financial Issues, folks. It was great to have those guests there. Stephen from Oklahoma in the chat saying, I love having great guests on the program. I do too, Stephen. It's really nice to be able to have people like that who we can hold up and champion and see what they're doing and hopefully, present to you some of the things that they're doing as well. Could even provide
better than having bad guests on the program.
That's right. That's right. We don't want to have bad guests or even goofy guests. We want good guests. And so it was great to have both Michael and Nick on the show just now. Hey, James, I appreciate you asking your question, brother, about the tracker there. I'm going to follow up with you there, man. I'm not sure how much more help I'll be able to give in the chat, but I'll follow up after the show and try to get to the bottom of your tracker issue there. So I appreciate you asking that and bringing that up. Folks, just a reminder, partner conference call is this Thursday. That's August 21st, Thursday, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have a petition right now, by the way, up on financialissues.org. This is very important. Make sure to make a note of this. Our petition for Tesla, we got almost 500 signatures on it right now. We are going to close that petition down on Friday of this week. So you've got about 4 days left. If you have not signed that petition, please go do so right now. The clock is ticking. That's right.
Peer pressure.
So you got to go sign it right now, folks. I know we have several thousand listeners every day. So the large portion of you who are listening right now have not signed the petition. So go do it right now. Make sure you get it signed before Friday. We'll close the petition down on Friday because eventually we got to send this thing over to Elon Musk. So we're going to do that on Friday. But make sure that you sign it, folks. As soon as you get the chance, tell your friends, tell your church, tell your family. And let's really make an impact here, trying to change the course of what Tesla's doing. So many on the chat. We mentioned Steven, we mentioned James, Nelson, Daryl, good to see you guys. Uncle John there as well. Brian and Kara, George, good to see you also on the chat. Jason in Oklahoma, great to see you there as well, my friend. Lisa's there also. Let's see here. We've got the ag report coming here with Craig Haugaard, and then we'll ask the question, is friendship just getting a little too expensive? Before that, here's Craig Haugaard.
Actually, we don't have the ag.
We don't have the ag.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
What
I
a
know.
surprise.
I know.
Shocker, we're still back. No, that's okay.
I can do it right now. No, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I used to try to do the ag, Sam, and it's tough. Man, Craig really does a good job. Way back in the day, Dan used to try to do the ag, too. This was back before we ever knew
Okay,
Craig.
good news. We have it now.
We do have the ag. Okay, so why don't we do the ag report now, and then we'll talk about friendship being too expensive. Here's Craig Haugaard with today's ag update.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for August 19th. Well, the past few days have seen big rains in Minnesota through western Wisconsin, as well as across much of northern Iowa. And much of the rest of the Corn Belt has been in a kiln-like weather, making traders wonder if this corn crop is cooking off the top end of its potential. Now, the Pro Farmer Crop Tour started yesterday, and traders are going to spend this week eagerly looking at the updates coming from that tour and seeing how they match up with the USDA's record crop projections. There was just enough uncertainty yesterday to give us a higher close, with December corn a penny and a quarter higher at 406.5. Soybeans remain in the middle of a tug of war that's ongoing in the product space. Soybeans are pulling up by soybeans oil value to the biofuel industry and being pulled down by soybean meals value to the export and feeding industries. Yesterday, meal was leading the tug of war, with November beans a penny and a quarter lower at 1041.25. Wheat was lower, with all three classes hovering near contract lows. Traders seem to be reacting to the peace talks with Russia and Ukraine, as an end of the war is seen as opening up more wheat flow from the Black Sea region, adding to an already bearish wheat market. Minneapolis December wheat was 3 cents lower at 586.25. Kansas City was a quarter of a cent lower at 528.25, and Chicago dropped by 2 cents, closing at 525. Cotton futures just continue to slide sideways. Yesterday saw the December futures ending the session 27 points higher as they settled at 67.81. Livestock futures saw Friday's rally continue. We had October live cattle 52.5 cents higher, $231.17.5 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle rose by $3.57.5 as they ended the day at $350.92.5 per hundred. And our October lean hog futures were 2.5 cents higher at $90.12.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures were sharply higher. The closing bell, we had September futures up 42 points, closing out today at 18.76. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
There he is, folks. Craig Haugaard. Quickly, before we talk about friendship and it being too expensive, the markets just opened about 15 minutes ago. Dow Jones is up 1/3%. The S&P 500 is down 0.1%. And the NASDAQ, the one that's bleeding the most right now, down about 0.6%. All right, Sam. So we saw this survey recently showing young adults believing friendship is just getting too expensive.
Well, ships are expensive. They're even more expensive than boats.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But this isn't ships. This is friendships.
Okay,
it's slightly different.
Yeah, okay, there is a distinction there, yes. But according to a study commissioned by Ally Bank, they found that 44% of Gen Z and millennials say lately they've been skipping major social events because of the cost. So when I first read that, I thought, well, that's not so good. Are people skipping out on friendship altogether because they're penny pinching, but that's not actually what's happening here. On average, people spend about $250 every month on activities with friends. So apparently they're just spending too much on those activities, with more than 40% of younger Americans saying they overspend on these activities a few months out of the year, with, of course, the most popular activity being going to a restaurant or a bar with their friends, which I think the study said people do about once a week.
Wow, that can get pretty expensive. Folks in the chat, so let me say this. You know, Sam and I are younger. We're in the millennial generation. I know we have a lot of listeners who are older Gen Xers or who are boomers. How did you spend time with your friends when you were our age? Did you spend a lot of money with them, or did you do other things that didn't require money? Obviously, back then, things didn't cost as much because of inflation, but still, things still cost money back then as well. How did you spend time with your friends? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Sam, this is really interesting. You know, I've had this happen to me before, where it's that awkward situation comes up where you're planning to hang out with a friend, and then somehow, or maybe it's a group of friends, and somehow the conversation comes up to, what do you want to do? And almost always it involves money. You're exactly right, Sam. I think 72% of the most popular activities are going to a restaurant or a bar, especially for guys. We love food. We just love food. We love to eat. It's delightful. But then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I got to cancel now because it's too expensive. It's not in the budget, especially if you're married and you have a budget with your wife, and then you have to tell your wife, hey, the guys want to go out and grab some food. Is that okay if I do that? Realize it's not in the budget. Listen, it's fascinating because it's pretty much expected now that if you hang out with someone, it has to revolve around purchasing something to eat. Sam, have you noticed that?
Yes, I've noticed it in my own life. I was thinking,
you always have to
I want to hang out with so-and-so, but that's going to cost money. I was just having this conversation in my head the other day, and I thought, why? Why does it have to involve money? Exactly. So it's a problem of my own making, I think.
It is. I think a couple of things that we can say in response to this. First of all, the elites don't want you to know this. You don't have to spend money to hang out with your friends. What a crazy idea. You actually don't have to spend money to cultivate deep friendships. I get the pull, especially for guys. I wonder if it's because we're almost afraid of getting into the emotional stuff. Like, girls can talk and talk and talk. I'm going to sound like such a chauvinist about this, but frankly, I don't care. Girls can talk and talk and talk about their emotions. Guys are a little more guarded with that. But when you've got your food in front of you, that's almost like a natural barrier.
No, this is sociologists have talked about this, that guys always need something to do. They need an activity or a vessel that justifies the conversation.
Sam,
women can just talk to each other.
I'll say this. Some of our most delightful time that we've had hanging out outside of work has been doing house projects together. Sam and our head of video, Luke Brubaker, came over and helped me remove some bamboo over the summer last year. It was a blast. It was delightful. But we had an activity that we were doing. I think for guys, that's really important. But folks, listen, you don't have to spend money to cultivate deep friendships. You can go outside. You can just go outside and hang out. You can go on a walk. You can pick a house project. You can invite the boys over. You can do that house project. It's cool to do that stuff, and that doesn't cost money. I think secondly...
Well, the house project might cost money, but that's a different kind of money.
It's a different kind of... You're choosing that then, rather than having to make the thing that makes you hang out be the thing that costs money. I think secondly, what's important is I do think sometimes you have to ask your question, is this friendship worth spending a little bit of money over? And I think that's really important. Is I would also say, don't be afraid to spend a little extra money on a friendship, especially when it's a person who encourages you in your walk, someone who builds you up, someone who's maybe an accountability for you. At the end of the day, listen, this is a super generalization here, Sam, and I want to even be careful saying this, but $20 for a meal, even with those inflated prices, is still just not that much. If you're someone who, is middle class, and if you're someone who's maybe older, you've made a decent living, you can spend $20. You can spend $20 on a meal. You can spend $30 on a meal. I think this is really important when you're talking especially about the number one friendship in the world that married people need to cultivate, which is with your spouse. Spend money on your spouse. Guys, I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to myself too. You got to be willing to spend money on your wife. She is more worth it than saving that money or even putting it away for investing. Spend it on your wife. Trust me, it's worth it. And I think third, perhaps a new line in the budget is in order. Maybe now's the time to sit down.
Friendship budget.
Yep, it's time for the friendship budget. If you've got one friendship or several friendships that mean something to you, and I find, Sam, the older you get, you don't need as many, I feel like in high school you have so many friends if you're at school or youth group or something like that. The older I get, 2 or 3 really good, solid, deep friendships outside of my wife.
I saw on that list one of the
good.
top activities was attending birthday parties. And I'm thinking, how many friends do you have that you're going to birthday parties all the time and spending money on them?
That's a great point. But it might be worth it.
Maybe I'm just not that popular.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Might be worth it to add a line in the budget. That way you're not feeling like you're spending extra money for something, but you're creating something where you can spend that money for it if it means something to you. So interesting stuff there, folks. I think it's a good reminder on the importance of friendship, especially biblical friendship, and how we spend our money is very important. Great to be here with you today, folks. It was a joy. We'll do it again tomorrow, God willing. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with what God has given to us. We'll see you next time.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.